Hello and welcome to this episode of Ask Amy. Today we're talking about all things legal with Elizabeth Tran. She is the Legal Services Director of Houston Volunteer Lawyers. I appreciate you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I get questions all the time from consumers. Probably not as many as Houston Volunteer Lawyers, but a lot of times I'm consulting attorneys, Houston attorneys, getting answers to these questions. So I wanted you all to come in, talk about the agency, and then we're going to give some practical good advice, not legal advice, but good advice for people who may be needing some assistance in resolving disputes or getting answers about whether it is you actually need an attorney. Let's start first. Houston's a huge city. When we say volunteer lawyers, the group is made up of attorneys who are actually practicing, right?
Yes. So we're we're an arm of the Houston Bar Association, and so we are our volunteers are practicing attorneys. They are, attorneys in all areas of law, and they give up their time. They donate their time to help answering questions and representing some of our clients for their legal matters.
And this sounds like a no-brainer, but why? I mean, these are attorneys that are making money every day and need to make a living.
Well, and it's just right. And then when you ask attorneys, it's just the right thing to do. There's just a huge justice gap out there, meaning that there's a lot of those who are a low income, working families, working Americans that aren't able to afford legal services. And that need is so great that when the Houston Bar Association formed Houston Volunteer Lawyers in 1981, they knew that with the expertise that the attorneys have, we can help our community members get out of situations that they shouldn't be in.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that, of all the people who have common issues with buying something that's not what you thought it was, or I mean, if you have the money to be able to say, oh, I'm calling an attorney, it's probably a whole lot less stressful than if you think I just spent $10,000 on this vehicle or product and I have no recourse because I can't afford to call an attorney or even pay a consulting fee to get information about what I should do.
Right, you're talking about working Americans who are, working, some are working paycheck to paycheck. Some are just, trying to just do everything they're supposed to be doing, and then all of a sudden something happens and their car breaks down after just buying it, and they're like, wait a minute, I just spent $10,000 on this car. I don't have money to pay for an attorney. What am I supposed to do? And that's where we jump in to at least, at the very least, provide advice for those who can't afford just reaching out to an attorney and paying the consultation fees. And that advice can be very valuable in helping that person proceed with their own claim against the other party.
Fantastic. I know, and not to belabor the point, but yeah, there's in a lot of instances where somebody feels wronged or they didn't get what they pay for, and you look at the damages, like they're just like, hey, it's principal. I shouldn't have to pay this $500,000. But then when you look at the cost of your time in hiring somebody, it's like, oh, but do I just pay it? Mm-hmm. And so these are the kinds of things that I'd love to talk to you guys about. At the very basic level, I mean, you guys are pretty accessible in that you have, there are these legal lines that volunteer lawyers staff so that there are ways to reach out to attorneys just to ask questions, sometimes a couple times a week or once a week.
Yeah. So how you apply for our services is you go to our website. It's www.legalhelphouston.org. You go there and you complete a short survey. In that survey, it's going to guide you to the different areas of services that we offer. Now, we do get quite a bit of requests for services, and so just this year we've had 12,000 people actually visit our website. 4,000 people make requests for services, and so it's quite a bit of people that need help, and we want to make sure that we're transparent about what we can do. And so we provide a legal line, which is a virtual advice clinic. And it's offered 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the type of a clinic that is available. But you apply online, and if you do qualify for the services, you're scheduled to speak to a volunteer attorney either on a Wednesday night or a Friday afternoon. It varies, and we can get that list to you. And also we have a Spanish-speaking clinic that's staffed by Spanish-speaking volunteer attorneys. And so
helpful.
Of course, we live in Houston. It's very diverse. We realized that was a huge need that our volunteer attorneys were willing to help with.
Yeah, and so that legal line, sort of the pre-registration or application is helpful because at least your attorneys can anticipate or know. I mean, you're not just going to get like 2 minutes on the phone because they're sitting there at a hotline type situation. They're prepared to talk to you about your specific issue.
Yeah, the legal lines, we actually screen the clients to make sure we understand what their legal issue is. In the legal lines, the volunteers that serve the legal lines are also supported by the HVL staff attorneys. We have 15 staff attorneys on staff that have concentrations in different areas of civil matter, and they help guide the volunteers with the reviewing those cases that the clients have and giving them the proper resources to give good advice. We want to be able to give good advice to our community members as to what their options are.
Okay, and we'll put that on the screen. The website is where they go to apply to be able to talk with an attorney on one of those legal line days.
Yes, you can go on the website. If you don't have access to a computer, you can call HVL directly, and we'll give you that number so they can call directly. We have a receptionist that's staffed there in the morning from 8 to 12, Monday through Friday. You can talk to her directly to take your information down, and we can do a phone intake.
Okay, and I also talked to you. You guys also have a veterans legal advice clinic that's in person.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so our veteran legal advice clinic is actually at the Michael E. DeBakey Veteran Affairs Hospital, and that is on every Friday from 12. I'm sorry, it starts at 1. So it's from 1 to 4 o'clock. We have an in-person clinic. And it's a walk-in clinic. Anyone can show up. It's geared towards veterans and family members of veterans.
Okay.
It's staffed by attorneys from firms, and you get legal advice the same day. And at the same time, your case is being assessed as to whether or not we will be able to find a volunteer attorney to help you with that case later on.
So on those days, I mean, certainly you don't have to be a patient at the DeBakey, the Veteran VA Hospital, but I could just walk in on any of those days at those times?
You can, if we have capacity at those during that time. So it's only a 3-hour clinic. And so we would like it to be reserved for veterans, but we do sometimes see those who aren't and need to have that in-person consultation.
Yeah.
And so it is open right now for that purpose.
And then I'm just wondering, so Houston has all these attorneys, but there has to be these attorneys who say, hey, yes, I'm going to volunteer pro bono, give some of my time to volunteer lawyers. So as people apply, are some of these cases handled depending on if you've got, are your volunteer attorneys looking through and saying like, oh, I could take that one, or how are they selected?
Oh, so with the 15 staff attorneys that are on staff at Houston Volunteer Lawyers, we have kind of like a matrix of what cases are good to be placed with volunteers. We know the capacity of our volunteers, what cases they're able to do, with the time that they can devote to cases, and so that's how we determine what cases are appropriate for volunteers. A lot of our volunteers too don't practice in the area that they're helping with. A lot of our volunteers are doing business, corporate law, oil and gas law, and they are just wanting to help. And so they don't do it on a daily basis. And so giving them a refresher on how to do a family case or a consumer case, or doing just litigation, going to court, that's what our internal staff attorneys are providing, that support and guidance to our volunteers.
Okay, all right, so we're going to take a quick break. That's a great overview of what the Houston Volunteer Lawyers do. When we come back, we're going to talk about one area that you get a lot of questions from people who call in, which is consumer law. So we're going to talk about that and give some good practical advice on some things that you can do if you're having an issue with a business or just in general a problem and you're thinking you need an attorney. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this episode of Ask Amy. Our guest today is Elizabeth Tran with Houston Volunteer Lawyers. You were just talking to us about the attorneys who volunteer with the program and sort of are able to say which cases they can take, right? Because they're volunteering their work. We know which calls people are calling about all the time. You guys have focused like, hey, we have the capacity or able to handle, we're focusing on these specific types of issues mostly. What are those so that people know?
Yeah, definitely. So our volunteer attorneys, since we have a limited number of attorneys that are able to take cases, these are the areas that we are focusing on this year. We are focusing on helping veterans obtain veteran benefits. responding to the IRS on tax issues, creating different types of estate planning documents and wills, end-of-life documents, clearing criminal records for those who are trying to just be able to apply for different types of benefits and their criminal record is getting in the way. And then lastly, we just started this program and are expanding it this year, is gaining citizenship through naturalization. And so those are the areas this year we're concentrating on, and we know that our volunteers are able to help our clients with direct representation.
Yeah, so I didn't ask you at the beginning, when people go in through the website and fill out the application, how much are you looking at? I mean, do they have to meet a certain threshold to not make above a certain amount?
Yes. So our program is
geared towards.
But there is an eligibility requirement, financial eligibility and assets eligibility requirements. Mostly our applicants fall with under 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, so you seek assistance. For our veterans, that's a little bit more generous. Our veterans can fall below 300% of the federal poverty guidelines to be able to obtain assistance. And then we have some room to determine whether or not, there's some flexibility in the services that we can provide.
Okay, so now let's talk about, so those are all the areas, and certainly you guys have those focus areas because you're seeing a lot of need there, but you have to be getting all of the same calls that we get, which is, I purchased this car, I drove it off the lot, 3 days later it started smoking while I'm on the freeway, what do I do?
Yeah, we do get a lot of the calls where people are purchasing products and all of a sudden it just goes out on them. What are they supposed to do? And so for those calls, we do think it's so valuable that they're able to speak to a volunteer attorney to determine what the next steps are in that process. What do they need to gather for documents, for evidence to say, hey, this was a purchase agreement that we went into and now the product doesn't work, but the warranty that you're providing, you're not standing by that warranty. What do I do at this point?
And you said, while you guys can sort of offer people guidelines, those types of cases are not the ones that you have attorneys lining up to handle pro bono, those types of consumer cases.
No, we don't. We don't have a lot of attorneys that are able to take those types of cases because a lot of the times the work that needs to be done is on the purchaser, is getting the documents, getting the evidence to show that they have a legitimate claim to take into court. And that is really, as a consumer, you want to document everything that you do. And you want to make sure that when you're purchasing, if you're purchasing a car, you have a contract. Read that contract and determine if the dealership is actually following the terms of that contract. And that's the things that you have to, you can't just make a claim and then say, well, I know that they wronged me. Well, we need to figure out what were they supposed to do that they didn't do.
Yeah, and then what kind of money or damages are you out because they didn't do that, right?
Right.
And so I think a good place to start, and where you help people a lot, is sort of forming this, I guess what we'll call a demand letter, but it's just kind of getting all of your facts in order. I was asking Elizabeth, I have people who reach out to me and they might send an email and it's, they'll spend so much time putting all this information out there, but it's hard to follow because they've been living with this problem maybe for a year or two and they're not necessarily starting at the beginning.
Right.
And so just knowing that if you've got this issue, hey, sit down, write everything down. We can call it a demand letter, but this could come in handy in any number of ways, whether you're going to send it to the company, whether later you decide to go to small claims court. What do people need to know, the basic things to include in this?
You want to document your interactions with the purchaser. You want to make sure if you're talking to somebody, a salesperson, they're making promises to you, you're writing down what those promises are. And you want them to put that in writing. As an attorney, we want everything in writing. And if you can't get that, get them to provide documentation to you on what this product was supposed to do for you or what the services are. But you want to chronologicalize all of that. Dates when things happened, dates when things didn't happen, when things started going wrong, so that you have a list of things, a timeline of what is going on with your purchase or the services that weren't being rendered.
Yeah, absolutely. What has transpired. And then you said evidence of damage or, the money that you're out because their promises were not fulfilled.
Right. You know, like if you have obviously if you purchased a car and it doesn't work anymore, if you need to take it to a repair shop and see what the damages are. What is the cost of that? You know, you'd have to figure out if that damage is related to something the dealership was guaranteed was supposed to work or not. Those are the things that you have to proceed with doing before to determine if it's actually part of what the dealership has promised or something outside of the contract that you entered into.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end of this letter, I think where people kind of fall short is, what do you want? I mean, like, you're writing all this because, I mean, everybody kind of stops short at the demand, hey, here's what I need you to do by such and such date.
Definitely. You want to put down exactly what you're asking for or what you're asking for them not to do in service in other types of agreements. But yes, you want to write down in there, what are you asking them, what is the value of the damages, and what are you asking them to pay and when and by what means. Mm-hmm. And after that, if they don't act on your demand letter, then you're going to put down a set of consequences. What are you going to do thereafter? Are you going to seek legal advice? Are you going to seek are you going to file a lawsuit against them? You don't want to do it in a threatening way, but you want to show them that you're serious, that you felt that they breached the contract that they entered into.
Yeah. And then I think that is very helpful, because I find in a lot of cases, I don't know if you do, that once somebody lays that all out there, then the company at least sees, if it's a company, the other side sees like, oh, okay, they're serious, they can read it all, maybe it's been passed down between different levels of management, but they have it all lined up right there. And then a specific ask or demand. This is what this customer needs. Can we do this by this certain date?
Definitely. When they see that you're organized and that you have basically put your ducks in order, that mm-hmm. you're prepared to present this in court, I think that they'll see that they're going to take you more seriously, honestly. Yeah. That's what it is. And sometimes they know they're wrong, but they don't think that as a consumer, you're going to have the ability to do anything about it. And it's not the case. You can represent yourself in court. You can represent yourself in small claims court. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of tools on the website that we love. It's texaslawhelp.org, O-R-G, that gives you the ability to find templates and find step-by-step guidance on how to represent yourself in court.
And that is, I always think that people hear court and they think, well, I don't want to hire an attorney. But small claims court was designed so that you shouldn't have to hire an attorney. This should be I'm going to go in, I'm going to take all this evidence, but it still can seem intimidating.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely. We're a big county, Harris County. There's a lot of different courts, and just knowing what court to go to can be hard. But Texas Law Help was created to try to simplify some of that, or to answer some of those questions. And so you can Google Texas Law Help and go on and use their search engine to determine like the type of case that you have, mm-hmm. And it'll give you procedural instructions on what you need to do to determine what jurisdiction you're in, what court you need to file in, and then it's going to give you links to templates that have been created by legal aid attorneys on how to fill in the blank and present your case in front of the court. Very,
very helpful. And one last thing I'll say, because we're out of time just for this segment, is when you fill that out, when you do go to small claims court, if it gets to that letter that you've already typed up is going to be required anyway, because at the beginning of any small claims case, don't they make you send the 30-day demand letter?
Yeah, so 60 days within, that's for a DTPA case.
Okay.
For a deceptive trade practices case, before you actually file a case, 60 days before that, you're giving the other side notice of what you're filing.
Okay.
And so yes, and that gives them time to say, hey, do I want to go ahead and negotiate something with the consumer so that we can both reach an agreement, or is it something we want to take this to court and bear those costs.
Right. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. That was fantastic. We're going to put all of these in our show notes and online so that you can understand all of these steps and things that you should take. When we come back, we're talking about your Veterans Project and how you guys are helping people with the IRS, with IRS cases. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this episode of Ask Amy. We're talking with Elizabeth Tran with Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and two big projects, areas of focus that you guys have. That's how we're going to wrap up this segment, is one with veterans. What kinds of things are you guys doing with the Veterans Project to help veterans?
So for veterans, they come in with all sorts of different legal issues, but specifically what we're helping with is discharge upgrades. A veteran that's been discharged with something other than honorable, and trying to get those upgraded so they can actually get more benefits that they actually deserve. The other one is service-connected benefits. Sometimes there's Social Security disability that's been denied because of a disability that's not being recognized. And so we do concentrate on those areas so that the veterans are able to get the benefits that they're entitled to.
Yeah, I mean, is it just like bureaucracy what makes it so difficult? You would think like, hey, I've served, I should have access to all of these different agencies and help, but it's hard.
You know what, a lot of the things with, I've never been in military service, so we do have, our supervising attorney has been in the military, understands internally what's going on, and so there is a lot of different things that are characterized that are judgment calls, and things, laws have changed since then. And so, if you served in the military 20 years ago and the laws have changed and that's not considered a bad act anymore, you can actually go back and challenge that so you can get better benefits now.
Oh, so like if you were dishonorably discharged, you mean?
Well, there's different types of, and I won't go into that because there's different levels, but there's things that were considered other than honorably discharged, we'll say that. And back, when they were discharged, it could have been, I don't have specifics on that, but once that is put on your record, there's certain benefits you're not entitled to. And now if you look at that again and have proof that incident didn't happen or it didn't happen that way, and you appeal that, you may be able to increase the benefits that you're receiving.
That would be big.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one is the IRS. I mean, I don't think that anybody would, I think everybody would agree that it can be very difficult if you need to deal with somebody with the IRS on a very specific issue. But what kinds of things are you able to help people with?
So we're able to help with different types of tax suits. So it's not, we're not preparing tax returns. We're helping with those who are getting deficiency notices from the IRS. And so a lot of the times too is we're providing the legal advice. We're requesting documents from the IRS. We're responding to notices for denial of credit, audits, collections, levies, and then we're representing clients in court too with their tax suit.
Yeah, I mean those are pretty big. And I said, what is something common that we can tell people that people a big thing that people usually don't do or have problems doing?
Okay, if you go to any attorney, they're going to ask for documentation. So if you're asking to appeal disability benefits denial, make sure that you're requesting those documents beforehand. That's going to help any attorney review your case to determine if you have a valid case. The same thing with our IRS. You can call and request our IRS transcripts in advance so that you have that ready and to respond if you have a court date around the corner. You want to make sure that what the IRS is looking at is what the volunteer attorney is able to look at and tell you, hey, this is where they're saying you have a deficiency, and now we're going to have supporting evidence to show that the IRS isn't right on that.
And so don't waste the attorney's time doing pro bono work. Don't waste your own time. Make sure that you are ready to show all of these documents before you reach out.
Yes.
It'll eliminate some of those delays. This has been fantastic having you on. I appreciate you coming in, filling us in on all of these. One more time, your website that we're going to make sure we put on the screen for everybody.
It's www.legalhelphouston.org.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the work that you do for Houstonians who need your services.
Thank you for having us, Amy.
All right. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching.